at heart and doing the best you can. It's all you can pressure yourself to be.
Yeah, I agree.
So now everybody gets to see the bottom of my head while I babysit Facebook. Make sure this is on there. We're on
Oh,
there, Jimmy.
you're going live?
We have gone live. I have you be on your page as well. And I'll take off my Jewish cat lady next door glasses. Today, Facebook people, I'm so pleased to have somebody I've actually met in person at Harvey's in Portland. He killed there, he kills everywhere. Anyway, we'll find out about him. Today, we have Jimmy Shin, who is an LA based comic, and he's an actor and producer. He's been on an HBO series, I'm sure you've heard of it, called Luck. And he has an Amazon Prime video called
Jimmy Shin's Walk of Shame.
Walk of Shame.
Spelled W-O-K.
Okay.
A lot of people look for the traditional W-A-L-K, but then you'll just find a girl that's going home or a guy that's going home after a bad one-night stand. So.
You know, what's funny is the word walk of shame or the spelling of it wasn't the problem. It's my writing. I couldn't read my own writing. Everything you're doing is fine with me. Jimmy, hi, welcome.
Good to be here, Linda. Good to see you again.
Good to see you again. This is the second time I get to interview you. I adore you. I adore your comedy. And, like you've been doing comedy a while. You got some success under your belt. And I was hoping you would open up and tell us some things out of your life, I don't know, maybe like your best experience on stage or funny hecklers, worst experience, things like that. Could we go there with you, Jimmy?
Yeah, of course you can. One of the things that really stands out, I mean, there's obviously been a lot of good shows doing it with, big headliners that you've always admired and looked up to. But the one that really stands out for me was my Tacoma Comedy Club show. It's my hometown. And my parents had never seen me before perform live. I mean, they've seen me on other platforms, but never live. There's just a lot of history, around it. My dad wanted me to be a lawyer. In fact, I did go to law school, but while I was going to law school, I got caught selling weed, which they don't like. And neither did my parents. And back then it was a felony. It was kind of serious business. And, needless to say, they were really disappointed. And so, for me to tell them I was moving to LA and become a stand-up comedian, that just seemed really uncool of me to do to them. And so for a long time, when I first moved to LA, they thought I was doing real estate again. So they thought I was like a real estate agent. They never knew that I was doing comedy at night. And my dad finally figured out Facebook. And he saw that I was doing all these shows, and then he saw that I was making a living at it. And, when I first moved to LA, he was my worst thorn in my side. He'd call me up and say, why you not move home? You're not going to make it in Hollywood, Why you no married? Why you no kids? You gay? And, he knew I wasn't gay. I think he was just trying to piss me off and get a rise out of me. But now that he figured out Facebook, he also writes on my wall, still in broken English, "You are my number one comedian in the world. Very handsome man." And so the tone has changed, right? Because I'm finally making a living at it. But I delete it because I still have some, resentments. But I thumbs up at first so that he'll get that notification. But he hasn't quite figured out how to get on my profile yet. So when he figures that out, I'm gonna have to step up my game. But yeah, no, it was still kind of weird, even though he knew I was doing comedy and doing well, to invite him to my big show in my hometown, because I had almost everybody I've ever known from high school, junior high, even a couple from elementary were there. And so I finally decided to call him. I think a couple things happened that led me to that decision. One of the things is a friend of mine's mom died. And she said she would give anything to hear her mom nag at her again, even just one more time. And so I thought about it, and I go, you know what? I don't want to my dad to pass away or my parents to pass away without ever seeing what I really do. And so I finally got the courage, invited them out. They brought 10 of their friends. Half of them didn't even speak English. And during my set, my dad starts filming me, which was super embarrassing because they told him to stop, but he wouldn't stop because he's, stubborn Korean guy. And finally, what I realized is that he was just that proud of me.
Oh.
He was that proud of me that he wanted to film it. He probably went home and saw it. The next day, he calls me up, crying and saying how proud of me he was. Because until you see it live, you don't know that, that your son is that successful at something, or that he could draw a crowd like that. And so the room was just jam packed, and he thought, he brought 10 of his friends, he's told me, thinking that no one else would be there.
Oh, so sweet.
And so to see, a full crowd, and then to see me do my thing on stage, I guess, it showed him that, this could really be real.
Yes. So what would you consider your funnest show and your worst show? Would that be your funnest, or is there another
I
one?
guess that was the most, is close to my heart. But, one of my funnest shows is one of my idols has always been Margaret Cho. She's the first one that looked like me, that was doing what I always wanted to do, right? Before I could even think of doing it. And so I met Margaret Cho, finally got her to do my show in the main room of the world famous Comedy Store. I got to come out and introduce her in that way and say, before I even thought of doing comedy, this person, showed me that it could be done, and then we got to, give a big hug. It was like a dream come true. It's like a movie, at that point.
It gives me body chills to hear it.
What?
It gives me body chills to hear this.
No, it was incredible. Yeah. So that was probably one of the most fun. But, there's been just countless when you're doing shows in Hollywood, countless shows that you do with your idols that you just can't believe it,
Yeah. Who are some fun people that you've been on shows with?
Man, I've had Bill Burr a few times. I've had Ali Wong pop in for a set. I've seen Dave Chappelle at like close to 2 a.m. pop in, all drunk and smoking cigarettes up there with sunglasses on, when you're doing it at the world famous Comedy Store, anything is possible. And it usually does happen that you see somebody that you've always wanted to see live.
Wow. Okay, so what about the very worst show you've ever been around or on?
Fortunately, I haven't had a really bad show in a long time. I think you just make all your mistakes already, so you don't make as many. But early on, in the beginning, I think everyone thinks they're better than they are. You know what I mean? So I was only like about a year into it, 2 years. I happened to be, traveling a little bit, being a feature for a headliner, but I thought I was really good. And so one night, I'm trying to be sober. By the way, I have 6 years of sobriety now, but back then I was just trying to be sober. I must have had like a week sobriety.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. And, I was doing a show in Seattle at this place called Laughs, which was called Giggles back then. And then kind of funny, it was a strip club for a while called Jiggles. And now it's Laughs again, a comedy club. So that's kind of funny. And I was doing this show and I invited a bunch of my friends, 20 of my friends, and this girl I like. So I really wanted to impress her. And so there was a lot at stake. So I got kind of more nervous than I usually do. And so, obviously I wasn't going to do any drugs or drink because I was trying to be sober. And I decided to slam down 2 Red Bulls. And I slammed them down as quick as I could, like right before I went on the stage. Well, I was kind of had an empty stomach. So it hit me like right as I was going on stage. I felt like I had just done like 2 lines of cocaine or something. And I just started talking, and I started talking super fast. And you know how you do that when you're really nervous and you start talking fast and you start jumping all over your jokes and stepping on them and not letting people laugh? Well, that's what I did. And right away, I knew that I didn't do well. And I got off the stage, and here was the nail in the coffin. Like the girl comes out after the show and meets me at the door and goes, "You were really nervous, huh?" And so I knew I had bombed basically. I bombed in front of this girl, and she wanted to still hang out. I don't think it mattered, but you know how it matters to you more than it matters to them. And I just didn't feel like hanging out anymore after that. I just wanted to go home and cry. So
You've done some acting, haven't you?
I've done a little bit of acting. I've never had any formal acting training, but it has come as a result of being a stand-up comedian.
So what was that like the first time you did that?
Um, Oddly enough, I mean, when you're an alcoholic and also you're a comedian, you're always faking it to make it. And so all it was like it was just faking it. So I was just acted like I knew what I was doing and I had been there before. And fortunately, one of my first movie roles in this movie called Silencer with Danny Trejo, who was one of my heroes. Watched, probably about 50 of his movies. He's in that movie. And long story short, I just faked like I knew what I was doing and I knew how to act. And, almost like in one of the scenes, like brought out a tear, like it got real into it,
Yeah.
yeah. And so I guess if anybody's a stand-up comedian out there, you know how they say if you could do stand-up, you could do anything. It's true. Like I was able to, sort of transfer my skills in stand-up and act.
Wow, that's so cool. So, um, your your sobriety, did you want to touch on your road to sobriety, or because that's what drew me to you this time to invite you on, is you were talking about sobriety being so important in the comedy community. Did you want to touch on that real quickly?
Yeah, I think especially in this day and time right now during the pandemic, people are turning to drugs and alcohol. The problem is that they don't provide a real solution. And what I needed, when things got really bad, is a spiritual solution to my problem, because it was a spiritual malady. I didn't know that. And so I was, had this big hole and I'm trying to, fill it with, even success or drugs, alcohol, whatever that is for you. And it just didn't fill it. And long story short, I was fortunate enough to find a good 12-step program, and I was able to address my spiritual malady, and it provided me with that spiritual solution that I needed. So just speaking to people out there, whether you're a comedian or not, if you're suffering right now from alcoholism, there is a solution. There is a way out. You can find me on I am Jimmy Shin on Twitter and Instagram, or you can add me as a friend on Facebook. I know I lost some friends from a post just recently, so I have some room now to add some people. So you can just add me, Jimmy Shin. I'm here to talk if you need to, and just go ahead and IM me, and we can talk about a solution for you.
Wonderful. That's great. Thank you so much for speaking out on behalf of people who might be suffering. That's such an important platform. Some people are trying so hard to stop and they don't see hope. So if you can provide it for those that need it, great.
Yeah, well, I can't provide it, but I know, a solution that can. So
yes, that's what I meant. Thank you. Um, what do you have planned in your bright future? I wish I was your age.
Well, right now, everything is just on hold, Linda.
Yeah.
Everyone's in the same boat with this pandemic. Recently, they just closed bars again after reopening here in California. So I don't have an answer. Every time I've said, "Oh yeah, it's going to be in end of June or end of May," it just never happened. You know what I mean? So right now, I'm just living one day at a time, like the program teaches you, and just trying to stay positive. So.
Are you somebody that will be writing sketches, scripts, doing more
Yeah, I've
acting?
been working on a book. I don't really want to talk about it right now, but yeah, no, it's a book that's kind of turning into a movie script. So we'll see what happens. I'm not ready to reveal yet. But.
I won't make you talk, but will you promise to come? If I refuse to let you talk about it now, will you promise to come back on and talk about it later?
Of course.
Thank you. Awesome. Is there anything you'd like to say in a comedic, we see things differently than other people, a funny way to make it through the rest of the pandemic? how to keep your head on straight?
I don't know about a funny way, but the way that I look at it, I try to focus on what I can do. Like I can do, these Zoom podcasts, like I'm able to see you. I probably wouldn't have been able to have this conversation, and I'm getting, used to it, and it's actually becoming fun. So I've been taking a lot of hikes, nature walks. Those have really helped, but I just try to focus on the things I can do. And actually, I've been almost just as busy, if not busier, than I was before the pandemic. So
Exactly.
it's an interesting thing when you start looking at the things you can do. There's plenty of that.
Yes, it's like the saying, when one door closes, another one opens. A lot of doors have opened for us that wouldn't have opened before when we had
Very true.
everything handed to us on a silver platter. Now we have to be creative. So
Exactly.
this has been a fun time for a lot of people that are choosing to look at the positives, and it's really hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
Yeah, I hear
So,
that.
where do you want people to follow you?
Yeah, again, on Twitter and Instagram, it's I am Jimmy Shin. Watch my special on Amazon Prime Video. It's called Walk of Shame, WOK. You can also find me on my website on jimmyshindig.com.
Jimmy Shindig.
That's right.
How do you spell that, Jimmy?
SHINDIG.
JimmyShindig.com.
Yeah.
I got it. I'll go type it on the post, put it out there. In a couple days, it'll come out with a real professional version. If you could share that one too, that will help me, not you. I'd appreciate it.
Sounds
You're
great.
awesome. Thank you
All right.
so much.
Thanks for having me, Linda. This was fun.
Thank you. Come back.
All right.
Anytime you have anything to promote, please come back, Jimmy.
Will do, Linda. Have a good one.
You too. Bye.
Bye.